Robots are at war and bots are battling.
We've been playing Steel Colosseum by Needy Cat Games and Zatu Games. We are Julian and Libby from BoxedMeeples, and you can find us on YouTube and Twitter and on Instagram.
Zatu Games have sent us Steel Colosseum by Needy Cat Games. It's an arena combat game for 2 to 4 players. But how does it play? Out in the wastelands, a new sport has taken over, where 4 robots brutally fight until one is deactivated. Operators pick from house robots, customise the equipped weapons, and then do battle in the arena until one takes so much damage it can no longer compete. Steel Colosseum is a competitive team combat arena game for 2 to 4 players. Gameplay is card driven. Each round, players simultaneously select and reveal a single control card for each robot. Cards are then resolved in speed order, and they determine if a robot will move, attack, or perform special actions. When a robot takes damage, they shed armor tokens, which are dropped onto the arena as scrap. If you run out of armor, serious damage is dealt instead. Enough serious damage mean the robot is deactivated, ending the bout and scoring a point for the opposing team. In between bouts, you can desperately try to repair your robots before battling again, and the first 2 bouts wins the battle.
So the copy of Steel Colosseum that we've been playing with for the last couple of weeks is actually a prototype. The game is coming to Kickstarter later this month, so keep your eye out for that. But do bear in mind when you're looking at some of our pictures and images that they are all from the prototype, so things may change. We've come up with 5 reasons why you might find this game super exciting and one that you might want to back on Kickstarter.
Now, anyone who grew up watching TV in the late 90s will immediately recognise what this game is based on.
Over here in the UK, we had a show called Robot Wars, and if you're more sort of US based, I think you'll be more familiar with BattleBots. You can definitely recognise that sort of theme in this game.
All the classic moments you see in those TV shows are replicated in Steel Colosseum. You see robots attacking each other, tearing each other apart, bits of metal flying across the arena.
There's sparks flying and there's smoke coming out, and robots are spinning around and flying off against the barriers, and this is the kind of thing that they're trying to replicate in this game.
Now, bearing in mind we used to watch this show in the 90s, Steel Colosseum has an incredible aesthetic that kind of mirrors that era. Often when we think of 90s and games based on that period, we get a lot of neon, a lot of vibrant colours.
This is way more grungy, isn't it?
Yeah, there's CRT monitors, there's banks of kind of semi-destroyed cars. It's kind of like Robot Wars meets Mad Max in a Borderlands style. It's all a bit dirty and it's a fantastic aesthetic, but you don't see it in a lot of board games.
The robots look menacing, and that's replicated in the minis.
Steel Colosseum comes with 6 robot miniatures which all look distinct and different and all reflect the kind of robot that they are. Juggernaut, for example, is huge and menacing and takes up the entire square, whereas meanwhile you've got Insectoid, which is much smaller and looks nippy.
Steel Colosseum's a game that looks great on the table, and you can imagine if you're at your local board game club and someone brought it out, other people will be crowding round to come and have a look and see what you were playing.
We've seen crowds of people and pictures at conventions all gathered around the table cheering on those robots. It's a real crowd participation game.
One element that we really enjoyed about this game is how you need to be able to read your opponent. You're playing cards to do certain amounts of actions, and you have similar cards per robots, but they are adapted for each robot. But in general, you're kind of thinking, are they going to play an attack card? Where are they going to be? Do they need to power down? In which case, can I jump in there and attack them because they think they're safe?
Steel Colosseum feels like a duel. You're reading your opponent and working out the best time to strike, and it's all about memorising what cards they have. And the more you play it, the more you get to know the robots, the more you get to know their strengths, their weaknesses, and the more you get to know what your opponent tends to do. You start trying to read them and second guess where they're going to put their robots, so when you programmed your robots to move into a certain position, you're going to be there at the ideal time to do the most damage to their robot and deactivate them and win the round.
In our games, I certainly was thinking, right, it seems like your robot's got, roughly this amount of speed. So if you're going to play a card like that, you might end up in this area. And then I'm thinking, right, am I going to be able to get there to attack? Can I do something else? Do I need to avoid them because I don't want to be attacked? Or should I make sure that if I am going to that area that I've turned in a certain direction so that they can't hit me face on? All of these different things come into play. There's been some games where I've gone in there guns blazing in the first round and somehow you've managed to pick up all the junk. So then when it comes to round 2, I couldn't get as much stuff, I couldn't re-put my armor back on my robot, and then I was going into the second stage a lot weaker than you were, even though I'd pretty much obliterated you in the first round.
So not only do you have to think about what's going in the round you're playing, you need to set yourself up for future rounds, because a battle in Steel Colosseum could last up to 3. So on the surface, you might think you're going to be playing Steel Colosseum exactly the same way every time you get out of the box. But in the back of the rulebook are a suggestion of loads of different arenas with different obstructions, nodes and debris in different places, which is really going to change your strategy and the way you need to approach them.
There's also 6 robots that come in the box. So each time you're going to be using 4 robots, there's always going to be able to interchange different pairings together, which give that extra bit of variety. And then within that, there's different operators that you'll use, which give you sort of like a little special power that affects each of the robots in a different way, or might be more or less useful depending on which robot. When you're buying things from the auction at the beginning of each game, you'll be equipping very different things to each of those robots. So even when you're playing the same robot again, it feels very different.
So if different robots equipped with different weapons being controlled by different operators in different arenas, you could already see the variety you're getting in this game, but just imagine what it could be like with expansions. Different robots with new cards operating entirely different ways, being controlled by different operators. As we're playing it, we've had crazy ideas of what it'd be like if there was flippers in the arena or fire pits.
I remember the TV shows had house robots and they would attack, or there was areas of terrain within there that actually caused damage to the robot. So adding some elements like those in could be really interesting.
It's this level of excitement you feel as you're playing Steel Colosseum and you're itching to get back to the table to see what great new team you can come up with, which combination of robots is going to work really well, and what it's going to be like when you finally equip that weapon that destroyed you in a previous game to use on your opponent next time.
So with all this talk of variability, you might be feeling a little bit daunted and thinking, oh gosh, maybe it's not for me. But it is actually really adaptable for different skill levels, different lengths of time to suit how you want to play. If you're playing with younger children, for example, you might be worried about the attention span over the 3 rounds, but it does actually play really well just to play 1 round, which is about 30 minutes if you wanted to. And then they can come back and they can play the second round a later time, or you can just say, first winner gets it.
As you open the box, there's a suggested opening robot combination you should use and the upgrades you should equip with them to get you into the game. And that strips out some of the elements like the auction and the player abilities. But with those included, you've got a really deep tactical game that's going to appeal to many people, because that auction really allows you to tailor your robots to suit your personal playstyle, and the combination of those that work together is what makes this game exciting. Now, I'm sure as you watch this, you've seen a robot that's caught your eye. Perhaps it's a big hulking beast that can batter down and destroy the opponent. Or perhaps it's a more stealthy, quicker one that loiter at the back and use range weapons to shoot them from afar. The variety of robots means you can pick one that you're going to really like. And the exciting part of the game is right before you even get in the arena, the parts market. Here you're at an auction. You can see what cards are available, which are different every time. You might have your favourite attack there, but you risk grabbing that and letting your opponent grab your favourite robot. It's all about tailoring the way your robot behaves to your favoured play style.
My robots had a close-up attack and a ranged attack.
Do you equip lots of attacks and weapons to your robot, or do you use special abilities that might protect them in the arena or let them get out of danger quickly?
I had Insectoid in one of the games that we played, and he does not have a lot of armour at the front, so I made sure that I'd equipped him with a shield so he would take less damage as attacked from the fronts or the sides.
And you don't just have the parts market at the start of the game, you have it before every round. So you're continuously trying to work out, should I use my scrap to buy a trick card, which might give me a leg up and manipulate the rules slightly in my favour? Or do I save all my scrap for a post-round auction when I can buy a weapon that I think is really going to do some damage to the way the opponent has equipped their robots?
We found Steel Colosseum to be really thematic. It really drew you into that arena with metal flying around and the robots crashing into each other until one of them's deactivated. One of the robots has an attack called Bite, and it goes in there and it grabs you and it takes the scrap and keeps it for itself. And this is unusual because normally the scrap would be scattered across the arena waiting to be picked up at a later point. So it's elements like this, little touches like that, that really throw you into that world of this metal clashing together, robot wars. And so much so that each time we started a round, we turned over our cards and said, activate robots. And I bet you'll do the same. We hope those 5 reasons have helped you decide whether Steel Colosseum is going to be the game for you.
I think it's pretty obvious, but we can't wait to get this game back to the table and have some more robot battling action.
If you've liked what we've done, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel, BoxedMeeples.
And if you think Steel Colosseum is the game for you, make sure, much like Juggernaut, you smash that back button on Kickstarter.